Welcome back to New Little Life. If you're new here, my name's Allison Tolman. I'm a nurse, lactation consultant, and breast pump expert. We do all things breast pumping and pumps, and it's fun here on New Little Life. So if you have not yet, please subscribe so that you can keep seeing videos. We put them out every week, and we love talking to you about breast pump science, breast pump pumping, practical pumping, all of these things, both for moms and professionals. So welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the best breast pumps for low milk supply. And I'm excited to talk about this topic because low milk supply is one of the most common questions and concerns I get, especially from people who apply to come join us inside our Pumping for Working Moms program. Almost always it is a milk supply question, milk supply concern, milk supply anxiety. We're going to be talking more about milk supply anxiety coming up soon because I think this is a thing that I see a lot. I see it a lot. That little bit of anxiety that you have every day about, I'm not making enough milk. I'm not pumping enough milk. How do I know if I'm doing this right? How do I make more? It's just a lot. It's a lot. And so low milk supply is common. And I think there are a few breast pumps in particular that do really well when you're struggling with actual low milk supply. If you're just struggling with low pumping output, that's kind of a different thing. And I'll put another video up top for you where we talked about how those are different. In this video, we're really going to be talking about you have actual low milk supply. If you're latching at the breast as well, it's low there and it's low pumping and we're trying to make more milk. So that's what we're going to be focusing on here today. Okay, we're going to start off with the bad news first, okay? My first piece of advice for you is to skip the wearable pumps. And I hate to say this to you because wearable pumps are great. They really give us that convenience factor. They just seem like they solve all the world's problems, but they are tricky to use. And especially if you're not already comfortable with pumping and the aspects that go into that, flange-sizing and pumping techniques and understanding settings, and be really comfortable with your milk output, your milk storage capacity, what your supply is doing. We really have to have all of these things well figured out before we start dealing with wearable pumps. So despite the promise of hands-free, worry-free milk removal, they just are not great if we're struggling with low milk supply. The user error is high, okay, but there's also some aspects that make them tricky because they just sit on the breast differently. You can't see anything. You have no access to the breast for any kind of other techniques you want to try, or very limited anyway. It makes it harder for yourself to do it. Not even if you know what you're doing, you've done it before, they just seem to not empty the breast quite as well in a lot of cases. Now, if you're the kind of person that just makes milk easily and just flows and stuff, honestly, you're probably not watching this video. But in those cases, wearable pumps kind of just work, even if you use them wrong. Like some people just make and release milk easily. They've got lots of milk. It's not a big deal. But if you're here, that's probably not you. And so I would avoid a wearable pump until we figure out what's happening with your supply and really dive into that. Now, I will say this one thing. Sometimes wearable pumps can work in your favor when the root cause of this low milk supply is the fact that you're skipping pumping sessions. So the one thing that wearable pumps have going for them is they are super convenient and they are super discreet. Maybe not super, more discreet than other pumps. But that can really help you maintain your pumping schedule and get in your pumps if that's the part that you're struggling with. You can't not pump and expect to continue to make milk. So if that's the thing, maybe a wearable pump is a good solution for you so that you can actually hit your schedule, remove milk frequently and efficiently. It's the goal, right? Let's move on to portable pumps. What do those look like? This is kind of a hit and miss. Now, there are some portable pumps that I would trust with a low milk supply to help bring that back up. It really depends on what type of settings work for you and how much I can trust you to utilize them correctly. But portable pumps in general are often more limited, so we have less options to work with. Now, they are portable, which again makes it a little bit easier to fit pumping into your schedule. So it's always a matter of balancing science and practical, which is my 100% favorite thing to do. In fact, I have these two little things sitting on my desk right in front of me always. This one is an anatomy of a breast with all the fun stuff in there. And this one is a mom struggling a little bit to feed her baby. And this is like a constant reminder for me that balancing the two. We can't just say you should go get $5,000 pump. It's like the heaviest duty thing you can find and pump, because that's actually not super realistic for a lot of mothers, especially working mothers who I tend to work the most with, because it's just not feasible in your life. So balancing that science and practical is really important. And sometimes that's where a portable pump can come in really handy. There are several portable pumps that I do not trust with low milk supply that I worry about a little bit, but almost always, if we can work together and make sure that all the other aspects of pumping are in sync, a lot of times a portable pump, we can make it work and get to where we need to go, but we really have to maximize everything else that's going on. Does that make sense? There are a few good options though, so don't be afraid of those, but pumping is just so complex. The more I dive into this, the more I realize it's not all about the pump, right? We talk about pumps a lot on this channel, but a pump is only a piece of the equation. We also have the flange kit, fitting, and sizing. And then there's a whole other part of pumping that's the mental and emotional aspects. And you might be thinking, whatever, that's like, just no. But it's really important. And the more I dive into this, the more I realize that a lot of times it's not actually a physical, logistical thing or an equipment problem that we're dealing with. It's a mental or an emotional struggle. And working through that can be tricky. But anyway, I digress. We're here to talk about pumps. Let's now talk about hospital grade pumps. And before we even go any further in this one, I'm going to put a video up top here and in the description on hospital grade pumps, what that term means and doesn't mean. Because it kind of drives me crazy, but whatever. Well, I'm talking about heavy duty, multi-user pumps that you typically find in a hospital. Oh, there's one over there, some Medela Symphony, the Meta Platinum. We're actually seeing a lot more variety in this area, especially the step down from this one. This is like a $2,000 pump. We're seeing a lot more in the $6,000 to $1,000 range. And there's another video on those kind of pumps, especially if you're a professional watching this. Those kind of pumps can be really nice and budget friendly for you. But do you actually need a hospital grade pump or a hospital style big multi-user pump to manage a low milk supply? No, not necessarily, right? There are some big cons. They're expensive and they're large. Okay. And many personal use pumps are doing just as well as those in maintaining and establishing and initiating a supply. Some are not. Okay. Not all pumps are created equal, but we have quite a few options of personal use pumps that work just as well as a hospital grade multi-user pump that are more user friendly. Right. Now, a main pro of using a heavy duty hospital grade multi-user pump is that they're reliable. Like, they just work. They just tend to function as we expect more of the time. And if you're working with a lactation consultant, many IBCLCs are well versed in just a few pumps, and a lot of times those are the hospital grade pumps that they use most often. So if you're wanting help and you're wanting your lactation consultant to work through this with you and really provide you with the level of support you're looking for, it might be in your best interest to use a pump that they're very familiar with, that we also know just works really well and reliably. In that case, it might be a good option, especially if the help and assistant that you have is really well versed in this particular product. Now, I do see sometimes lactation consultants get stuck in their ways and just have like this one pump they think solves all the problems, and it's not always the most appropriate. So just kind of like feel it out and trust your gut. You know, if you feel like it's they've always used this brand, but we know that this brand isn't as good as maybe it used to be. I'm not going to name any names. Just trust your gut and see, can they help me? Do they have the knowledge and experience to help me? We have a training course for professionals that I'm just throwing that out there. If you want to be more well-versed in pumps and pumping, that's there for you. I also have a program if you want to come and work with me. If you're a working mom, we have the Pumping for Working Mom program. You can apply down below, and I'd love to talk with you there. So I do think that there is a place for hospital style pumps. If you're in the hospital, totally. If you're initiating a milk supply and you're in the NICU with a baby anyway, I would definitely, that's a no-brainer. Like, use their nice pump. They're reliable. They work well. They're usually fairly simple to use. And so those are all big pros for that. I don't think it's absolutely necessary though. I think we can utilize some of the other tools that we have, and I would not go buy or even, you can rent them if you don't have a reliable pump, but if you do have a reliable pump already, I don't feel like there's a need for you to go and spend time doing that avenue. Okay, So where does that leave us, right? Let's talk about what the other options are. I think a good question to start with is how expensive does your pump need to be, especially when you have low milk supply. A lot of times mothers are willing to pay the stuff. I'm willing to buy it. I'm willing to invest, and I'm willing to make this work. But I don't always think that buying, multiple $500 pumps, trying to make this work, is the best use of your time or money. So let's try and avoid that if you can. If you'd like to invest in something different, come get some help. Maybe the pump you have is fine. So we don't need to go to the top end because that's necessarily better, but we don't want to be scraping the bottom of the barrel either. So the $20 pump on Amazon might have a place in another scenario, but likely not this one. I'm not saying there's not. Yeah, I am saying it. There's just, when you have a product that costs $20, what do you think went into that? Is it quality? Is it reliable? So here's kind of what you're looking for in a pump that you can trust with your low supply. You're looking for some adjustable settings, ideally. A little bit of adjustment in the cycle speeds and suction settings. All of them you can adjust suction, right? But make sure that it has a nice range. Some pumps have a smaller range. It's a top heavy. A few pumps, unfortunately, have a bottom heavy range of suction where we can't get it high enough, and that stinks too. So we need to make sure that we have some options to work with. If you're troubleshooting low supply, we don't want one pump that does one thing, right? That's going to be difficult to make adjustments. So it just makes sense that you find one that has a little bit wider capacity for adjustments so that you can play with it and figure out what works best for you. I tend to like to see a little bit faster cycle speeds, especially in stimulation mode. I feel like that can help elicit the milk ejection reflex a little quicker, and that's great. Make sure that it's simple enough to use, that it has an intuitive user experience, that the suction level is strong enough, especially when you're double pumping, because that's likely what you're going to be doing if we're dealing with low milk supply. If you're also latching the baby at the breast, you may be doing one at a time as well. But for the most part, we're double pumping. So make sure that the pump can hold up to double pumping standards. I would also take a look at the flange kit and make sure that it has some sizing options available. There's an insert available for almost all of them now, but I would check and see, what does this pump come with? Is it going to be easy to find sizing and parts for the flange kit? Because that's a really important piece of the breast pump setup, right? In fact, maybe even equally, right? They both have to be working and functioning well to make this all work. I would also choose a pump that was established and known for having a reputable reputation. Don't go buy the newest pump on the market until we know that it works. We've been burned with those in the past. Sometimes they're awesome, but if you have low supply, I would not trust this process with a brand new to market pump that we just don't have enough information about yet. So be cautious there. And then keep in mind your other unique variables. What's causing this low milk supply? That's a huge one, because that will play into the fact of which pump might work best for you. If you have Raynaud's or you get vasospasms very easily, you might want to steer away from a pump that has vibration, or some really harsh patterns and things like that. If you have sensory issues or you're easily overwhelmed, the noise that the pump makes might be important to you too, and to have minimal vibrations and things like that. So keep in mind any other aspects that you have. If you've had previous breast surgery, you need a pump that can likely give a little bit more on that heavy end of suction, because we're dealing with some different anatomy now, right? So again, you kind of have to keep those things in mind when you're looking at a pump for low supply as well. So what if you already have another pump, right? How do we know if it's good or not, or if we need to get a new one? Now, in my experience, especially working with moms closely inside my program, we can usually get by with the pumps that they have and make it work. There are a handful of pumps, and I did a video on the worst breast pumps for working moms, which I always hate talking negatively about, some of these things, because I know what it takes to create a product and run a business and stuff, and it's hard to hear that. But some of these pumps are just not performing. And so there's a few that I'm like, I think it's a pump problem. A lot of times though, that's the other parts of the pumping experience that are not quite right that are causing this problem. So a lot of times we can make it work with the pump that you have, especially if you're US based and you got it through your insurance. Unfortunately, the lists that I often see through insurance companies are lame, but we are starting to get more and more really nice options on these lists. Particularly one of my favorites, the Unimom Opera. I'm seeing that more and more on covered by insurances, which is crazy because that's a dynamite pump. Obviously the Spectra 1 or the 2 is an old reliable favorite. Genie Advanced is one of my favorite portable pumps as well. You know, these pumps are well known and consistent, but it doesn't mean that the pump that you have isn't that way, okay? So I don't want you to feel like you have to go out and buy more pumps, better pumps. There's a new pump, it must work better, and that's gonna fix my problems. In fact, we've talked about this on the channel before. A big red flag for me is when I meet a mom who's struggling and I ask them how many pumps they have, and they have a lot. And that's, if you like pumping, you like trying new pumps, that's awesome. And I'm in the same boat. Like, I've got a lot, right? But if you're buying pumps to try and fix a problem, to fix a low supply problem or a pumping output problem, that's telling me this is not a pump problem. This is a pumping challenge. And that's where I like to work. And it's interesting to me how easy it is to spend, you know, $200 to $500 on a pump, but then, you know, investing in some help that can make this better for the long term is like a hang up for some people. But, you know, I don't know. In my mind, we don't have to always change out the pump to make this work. Now, we do have tons of pump reviews and tutorials and comparisons on the channel and stuff. So see if you can find the pump that you have, the pump you're looking for. If you don't, you can leave a comment down below and I'll try and get to it. I will tell you that my list of pumps to explore is very long because the market just continues to pump them out, no pun intended, at a rate that I'm struggling to keep up with. I can't imagine how lactation consultants are keeping up with this, where they're dealing a lot with the feeding at the breast problems and complexities there. But this is my job. So if you have a pump you want me to explore, put it down in the comments and we'll tackle it from there. Oh. As a side note, I'm reading my script and I think my 9-year-old son hacked it and he wrote, "I love you so much, Mom." That's cute. Anyway, that's an aside. I think where we go next is beyond the pump. There are some things that affect the pump performance and how it all works together that are not actually the pump. I think the flange kit and flange sizing is a huge one, and we've talked about that. I'll put a video up there for you on flange sizing because it's an important piece, and we talk a lot about this inside my program too, really getting it right and experimenting. I wish it was as simple as measuring and adding a couple millimeters on and there you go, but it really does take a lot more discovery and experimentation than that. Not all nipples are totally circular and not all nipples respond the same in a sized flange. And so I think that's an important piece. Whenever you use also attachments or hacks or parts that don't come with the pump, it alters pump performance. And sometimes it alters it a lot. And I think this is something that we haven't totally realized. Maybe I'll put together some information on a few of the common hacks so that you can see how much it alters performance. Sometimes good, sometimes it doesn't matter, it's close enough, and sometimes it's unsafe. I'm just like, or so bad that now your pump's not working correctly. So, you know, avoid any, if you have low supply, avoid using any parts that didn't come with the pump that you're not confident that work well with it, because that is an important piece. Pumping is an art and there's a lot that goes into it. It's really just not plug and play. You can't just put a pump on and have milk come out. Sometimes you can, and I will say I've met moms like that. Well, not very often because they're not usually on videos like this, but that totally happens where you just get the lucky straw and your milk comes easy and fast and fun and super. But I would say for the most part, it's a struggle, and especially for working moms, because when you are, you know, feeding at the breast at home or even pumping at home, it is different than when you're pumping at work. And there's a lot of emotional and mental aspects that go into pumping, and doing that at work can make it really hard. Oh man, this video is too long. Anyway, I hope that helped you at least kind of dive into some pumps for low milk supply. If you have problems, if you want help, let me know. You can apply to come and work with me. I'd love to meet you and see if we're a good fit to work together. Tons more videos down below, so check that for the next videos. I'll put one up here too for you because we have a lot more information diving into this. So don't forget to subscribe so I can see you on the next video. Good luck and happy pumping.